Hi there, welcome back to the Leeds lobby. It's good to be back. We're going to be doing a little bit of a review of the Barnsley game, but then we're going to be getting right into it and talking about the Brighton upcoming fixture and where we think that we're going to be. So first and foremost, let's get straight into it. Before we do that, what we'd like for everybody to do, if possible, is please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It's really important to us in terms of supporting the channel that you do that, and also hit that notification bell. So we've had a bit of activity this week to go over, Dan.
Yeah,
we've got the Barnsley game. We've also got Jesse Marsh's press conference. Did you get a chance to have a look at that?
I saw some of the stuff that he said in it, yes, about Drame and Bamford and Bill, and I think it was Firpo who was talking about as well. Okay,
so let's start with the Barnsley game. What were your overall impressions of the Barnsley game?
I thought that the first half was absolutely abysmal. We were extremely lucky to get out and still have a lead in the first half. But obviously, we've seen that a few times under Marshall. We've played bad, but we've somehow gotten results. Obviously, Crystal Palace, Watford, Norwich to an extent. So I'm not really complaining. I think it might be the fact that we think we're playing bad because we're that used to seeing like liquid, beautiful football under Bielsa. And now we've had sort of almost a culture shock, really.
Okay, I look at it slightly differently. I think Barnsley sort of seemed to pen us in for probably the first 10 or 15 minutes. But again, I think once we worked out our way to get... I mean, it was never going to be a game that we were going to lose, I don't think.
No.
I mean, obviously, they're League One opposition.
Yeah.
But what got me a little bit... I mean, what did you make of the team? What do you think about... Let me ask you a question, because obviously I've been considering this last couple of days. What did you think about Jesse Marsh's selection when you consider the same game last season was the Crewe Alexander game, which we went to? How do you think the difference in the makeup of that team reflects the strength in depth? Let's ask you that question.
I think that we actually managed to put out quite a strong team. Definitely agree with that. I think that we had more options. I don't think we played any single player that played in the Chelsea game. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong there.
We had players that were on started. Come on,
we didn't play any.
Meslier and
Meslier. Rodrigo didn't start.
Llorente started.
Yeah. Okay. So Meslier and Llorente. Other than that, none of those players started in the Chelsea game. So it shows that we have two teams that we can rotate. We have rotation.
Yeah, and I think that's key. I tweeted out the other day what I found was interesting was the way, and this again is reflective because it seems to be that the squad that we're going to put out for these early cup games is going to be kind of very similar to the team that played perhaps in the under-21s to a certain extent. Everybody expected Archie Gray to feature and he didn't. I don't know whether he's got a niggling injury. I mean, obviously he's probably celebrating his exam results.
Yeah, he did get his exam results, didn't he?
Yeah, and obviously Marsh was...
There is Manchester City apparently are sniffing around Archie Gray, sending scouts to watch him and stuff. So
they can watch all they want. They're not having him.
That's an interesting one.
They're not having him. We'll have Giarbi off you, but you ain't having Gray in return.
Yeah.
I think the key for me, I mean, look at the makeup of the under 21s, and this season we are bolstering the under 21s with players that last season would have been, if available, first team players. Our under 23s, I think, went down last year because of frailties within the squad.
They couldn't play both games. Yeah.
So we were moving players up like Greenwood and Joffrey, and we were having to put them in the squad for the main team because we didn't have a depth in numbers and depth in squad. So for us to now be in a situation where Forshaw and Click and players like that are now playing in the under 21s because they need pitch time, just shows us where we've come on in terms of the squad numbers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we have an A team and a B team now, which is something Bielsa's idea of a plan was if plan A doesn't work, improve plan A. But now we have a plan A and a plan B because we have two teams, which is really good.
What was nice, even though we're playing League One opposition, was to see Click weighing in with a goal that was reminiscent of the type of goal he used to get back in the Championship.
Yes, absolute screamer.
We've not seen him scoring those sort of goals since we've come up to the Premiership, and he used to regularly.
We did in the first season. In the first season in the Prem, I remember he scored an absolute beauty against Southampton. He did. I think he was the player with the most goals from outside the box in the first season. So he was making good output.
Yeah. So what did you make of the overall game then? What was your takeaway in terms of the squad, in terms of the players, in terms of I mean, obviously Sinisterra got his first full game, he got his first start. What did you make of that?
I think Sinisterra looks like a baller, if I'm being honest. He does look like he looks like he's going to be a really good player for us, and obviously you buy these big money signings and they normally flop, but I don't think he's going to, and a lot of people said it was because of the expectations and the money we paid for him, but he can't flop after that goal. Did you see it? It was an absolute screamer.
I mean, the press in and around Feyenoord were all very, very praiseworthy for Sinisterra. We're all saying good things about him. In terms of that particular team, he had a massive output in terms of assists and in terms of goals. I think it was 23 assists or something like that. It was 20. It might even be 23 goal contributions in 30 games.
I think it was 20. I think it was 24.
It's a huge return for a winger. And certainly as he's come over here, there's been quite a lot of noises coming out of the training ground, coming out of Thorpe Arch, that we've really got a player here.
Yeah.
What was interesting is it's the first time he actually started, and yes, okay, we're not going to roll the red carpet out and start blowing trumpets just yet, because they were playing against Barnsley. We do need to keep that as a reality check.
Yeah.
But for him to be involved in all 3 goals in the way that he was, it certainly looked like he was taking hold of that game in a way that you'd expect Rafinha to take hold of that.
It was. He definitely took the game by the scruff of the neck, and sort of obviously, he scored the first goal, won the penalty, and then he made the key pass to Somerville to lay it back to Click in the 3rd goal. So
the question is, did he look a cut above Click and Forshaw? Did he look like the best player on that pitch, which is what we'd want if he's going to start for us?
I think Click was my man of the match. Click absolutely bossed that midfield, and I know he wasn't contributing in all the goals, but he absolutely, the Barnsley midfielders weren't getting a sniff.
Yeah.
So
let's just go through the goals. So the first goal, just talk us through the first goal, Dan.
So I only saw the replay of it because I think we missed the first goal because we were trying to find a stream. For the game, but I just remember Sinisterra got the ball. He took on about 2 of Barnsley defenders, dribbled it round him,
cut inside,
and then finished it with his right foot.
Typical inverted wingers goal. Well, I say typical inverted wingers goal. There's nothing typical about that goal, but it's certainly the position he found himself in, where he was cutting in at the edge of the box and putting the ball in the net. It was an outstanding goal. And I think the keeper, the Barnsley keeper, did get fingers to it, but it's obviously, I don't know whether they got a weak hand or something, but obviously it managed to go in, which was amazing.
Yeah, David Dyer-esque.
But certainly taking a game by the scruff of the neck and doing what we are. I mean, we've seen him do that in the Premiership, in the Premier League. It's going to be stunning. What about the second goal?
The second goal, obviously, Sinisterra looks like a handful for them defenders. He just ran through. What I noticed about him was when he was making runs, he was staying close to the byline, and that's really important because then he sort of leaves the defenders in a checkmate, and it's really important because he leaves the defenders. If the defender goes in and slides in and tries to win the ball, they're going to concede a corner because he's keeping the ball on the byline. Keep the ball on the byline. Keep the ball on the byline. If they go in from the front, he goes down and wins a penalty. If they go in from the back, he goes down and wins a penalty. So it leaves the defenders in a huge checkmate. Rafinha did that specifically, if you remember, against Norwich, when he took it around the keeper and took it to the byline and then played it back to Joffy. So it's a really good trait of a winger if you see them doing that. And I think that he did that a couple of times. Did it for the second goal to win the penalty. Did it for the third goal to cut it back for Somerville. It was he looks like a handful for the defenders.
I do think that the one thing that strikes me is the way in which he was doing that, and the way in which he was cutting inside looked very reminiscent of what we were seeing from Rafinha, where he would literally come and he would cut inside and he would be looking at a way of playing it with his right foot from the left back into the box, and in actual fact he won the penalty from there, but also he actually had a massive part to play in that third goal as well, which set Click up, which I think it came off the defender and went back to Click, who finished it clinically. But again, if we can see him doing this in the Premier League, that's going to be very, very exciting. The question is, if we want to start him, he's got to play his way back into the side. Who's he going to be at the expense of?
James.
James,
Bamford's going to be long term out. I think we can all see that from the last few times he's been injured. Bamford's out for long term again.
So that's going to be under the assumption that Sinisterra is not going to play on the left. He's actually going to play on the right, because you wouldn't move Harrison with the way he's playing currently.
No, you wouldn't move Harrison.
And the question is, what's he going to be like on the right? And if he's going to be playing on the right, why not play him on the right against Barnsley and give him some minutes on the right, so we can actually assess how good he's going to be?
Is that what they did, or no?
They played him on the left, which is interesting. So we don't really, at this moment in time, I don't think Harrison, if he's fit, it can be supplanted in that side with the way that I'm expecting him to play. But again, on the on the right, do we want to be seeing what Sinisterra is like on the right in order to bring him in? It's an interesting question.
Yeah. I think it does look like a good sign, and that it's going to be good. What do we make of Somerville? I think that he's definitely, every time I've seen him play in a senior game, even quite a few times in the series, he's always going down with cramps. He's always having to have someone stretch his leg out and sort him out. He seems that he's got the pace, but he's not. He doesn't live up to. He's not up enough up to it for the big blokes, and he looked good. But do you get what I mean? It's hard to explain, but he doesn't look like he's physical enough. I'm a little bit concerned about Somerville. Somerville in the under 23s last season was startling, and certainly the game we went to see against Palace was. His performance was standout. To the point where him and Cresswell in particular looked like they were playing below their level almost. The problem with Somerville is you move him up to the Premier League, or you move him up to play against fully grown blokes, and he just doesn't look strong enough. Yeah. He's pushed off the ball. He doesn't look like he's got the physical prowess to be playing at that level. He's not bulked up enough. He's not like a Raheem Sterling. He's not quite there yet. Yeah. And that's got to be a concern. I think if he hits the gym and gets some built a bit more physical and starts building some muscle, then we could have a talent on our hands. But I was talking to my dad about how they're giving him the number 10 shirt, and that's a huge statement from the club to say that he's going to be obviously taking the shirt off of Rafinha when Rafinha's left. That's just a huge statement. Yeah, they obviously rate him at Thorpe Park. Yeah. Otherwise that wouldn't have been the case, and obviously they've offered him a new contract. But my concern is there's got to come a point when he steps up. And I'm not entirely sure. This is a lad that needs minutes. I'm not entirely sure. And he needs minutes at the top level, because if he doesn't get minutes at the top level, he's never going to learn to play against some of these bigger guys and some of these bigger, fully grown men that he's going to be playing against. But what concerns me is with Harrison and Aronson, and possibly even Wang coming in, which we'll talk about a little bit later, with James. With so many different options on the wing now, I'm not sure where his minutes are going to come from in the first team. That's got to be a concern for Somerville, and I'm not sure he's shown enough in Barnsley to even gain himself minutes, even at a game we've already won. So that's a concern for me with Somerville. There were talks of him going on loan to Forest, but I think that it goes both ways. I don't think that Forest were actively sniffing around him trying to get him on loan. I think we were actively sniffing around offering him to Forest on loan, because if you had to pick out one team that plays in a similar system to us, it would be Forest. And I have Forest mates, I watched all the games, and they play as a narrow pressing unit with the fullbacks attacking. Obviously Jed Spence making some huge contributions last season from right back, and obviously now they've brought in Toffolo and Williams looks like a baller because they're playing at fullbacks, and the fullbacks are wingers. So these are I think that if we wanted to loan Somerville to one team in the Premier, it would be Forest, because you would get experience in a narrow, more as a inverted narrow winger system. So I think that it was more us offering him to Forest rather than Forest coming in for him. I'm going to say this now. We've got literally a week to go before the end of the transfer window. In actual fact, we've got less than a week to go. I actually think a good call would be at this stage to send Somerville out on loan if he's going to get some first team action, because I don't think he's going to get it. I think Drame as well, obviously with Bill coming back. I think I'm going to make my prediction now. I'm just going to throw my prediction out now. So clip this up. We will sign a striker. We won't bring in a left back. But my prediction now is on deadline day, we will bring in either Hwang or Brereton Diaz and that'll be our business done for the summer. Just click that up. It'll be Hwang or Diaz on deadline day.
Do you think James is going to go?
No, I don't think Hwang is really a James replacement. I think that he's depth on top of what we've already got.
He's somebody that can play up front as an option.
It looks like the strikers we were looking at aren't out and out strikers. We know Bielsa loved an out and out striker. We know Bielsa loved a
winger.
Bielsa loved wingers and strikers, but not together. No. He loved a striker that solely was a striker and a goal scoring threat, and then two natural wingers, not inverted wingers, just normal crossing wingers, your average wingers. Marsh it seems to me that he much prefers a striker that can drift wide and play on as a winger, and then two inverted wingers with him.
What about that save, that penalty save?
I think it was a basic pen. I think it wasn't special as we saw against Aston Villa, but I still think that Melié's the Iceman, and he's...
Again, it's no wonder that the Premier League are sniffing around some of these players, because, oh my word, I hope we keep Meslier, and we've now got some crown jewels in that area, and certainly it's going to be look great to see how he performs. I think he'll get some pitch time in the World Cup possibly.
What are we thinking for the Brighton game?
So the Barnsley game, that's the Barnsley game more or less covered. One other thing, what did you think? I don't know whether you watched the press conference, what sort of depth you watched that, and there is one thing that we do need to talk about, and that's the kerfuffle that happened on the Leeds byline and the fight that sort of broke out. What did you make of that?
I don't know. I took my eyes off of I blinked, and then someone was on the floor. They were like throwing hands, they were punching each other, pushing each other, and I don't know. Very. I think strange.
That was the biggest thing about that was Jesse Marsh's reaction when he was asked about it in the press conference, because Jesse Marsh turned around and said, "I liked it," which was really, really interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a Tyson Fury fight. It wasn't like World War III, but it wasn't just handbags at dawn either. There were obviously at some stage a lot of pushing going on. But I think Jesse Marsh liked the fact that this team were backing each other up and doing it to the extent that they were without getting a red card. And I think Jesse Marsh he likes mixing it a little bit. I think we're going to find that he's got a bit of a reputation for winding up the opposition. His comments about Tuchel, would have got. I don't know. I'd be interested in knowing did Tuchel have his press conference first or Jesse Marsh?
Tuchel had his first.
Did he say anything about what Jesse Marsh had said? I didn't watch Tuchel's press conference, but I tell you what, it's interesting to sort of think about that, because Jesse Marsh made some comments about Thomas Tuchel shouldn't be on the byline. If Tuchel's watched that, that's going to wind him up. That's going to wind him up, which is, again, there's a little bit of match play there, and a little bit of I suppose gamesmanship to a certain extent from Jesse Marsh, and I like that. I'll be honest with you, that makes for a striking contrast to Bielsa's press conferences, where he didn't speak particularly good English and you didn't really get much in terms of answers beyond the sort of normal tropes that were trotted out. Jesse Marsh is a little bit more exciting in that forum for me. I think it's interesting. I think we're going to see a manager that is passionate on the byline, and I'm really, really interested. So again, I
never see him sitting down. He's always he's very much like Arteta in the way that he's always standing up. I never see him sitting down.
No. So a couple of questions. Obviously we're going to get into the Brighton game in a minute. If you've not already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. Please like the videos. It helps for everybody to see. And Leeds fans out there, whether you're this side of the pond, that side of the pond, whatever it may be, please hit the like button and do share the content. We really appreciate all your support, and hit that notification button, particularly people saying that the mist is going live. If you want to see us going live, you need to hit the notification button, and then you get to see that we're going to be going live. What do we think about the upcoming Brighton game then, Dan?
I think that's going to be the most challenging fixture. I think it could arguably be more challenging than Chelsea. Obviously, in 4 games we only registered 1 goal against them that came from a filthy skill by Joffrey and then a header in from 50p head. But
you're nicking just jaws there.
Yeah, but I think that could be a really challenging game for us. A huge upside is that I think that Tariq Lamptey is out, and he is one of the best fullbacks in the league for me. One of the best right backs. He's absolutely rapid. He's skillful on the ball, and he's just positioning is brilliant. And Neil Maupay, obviously moving to Everton, and Brighton not having a a proper striker to play up there, other than really Danny Welbeck, who scored against us, but I don't think that he's going to be able to handle the press with his age. So he is a quality striker though, but I think that they have a few absences that are gonna make it a bit less of a challenge.
Who's missing that has played in the first 2 or 3 games for them this season?
I don't know. I know that Lamptey hasn't played because he's been injured. I think that Shane Duffy's gone out on loan. I know that, and he's sort of one of the
leaders. Is he not one that used to be in Boyzone?
I think that he's gone out on loan. I think it was to Stoke.
Yeah.
But he's not a great player, but he's like Liam Cooper for us. He's more of a leader.
Has Sean Dyche gone to Stoke?
It is looking like Sean Dyche's going to go to Stoke, which is a cold, wet, rainy Brexit night in Stoke.
That's a good. He fits them quite nicely.
That is a ready-made move for Sean Dyche.
So before we get onto the sort of predictions as to what we think the scoreline will be, and then obviously what teams we think are going to be coming out for the Brighton game, what I will say is, if you go on the internet on your phone or wherever you're watching this, and you screenshot Leeds' last 5 or 6 fixtures and their form, and you do the same with Brighton, and you have them alongside each other, you'll find something really, really interesting. So, for example, our last win was against Chelsea, and we won at home against probably what's going to be a top 4 or 5 side, 3-0. If you look at Brighton, did Brighton win 2-0 away to Wolves? And if you go and you look at, and you put
no, it wasn't. It was 4-0 to Manchester United, I think.
No, that's the previous game. But if you did the first game of the season, but if
right.
you go back and you look at their fixtures, their away wins against slightly easier teams, away draws, what you'll find is if you pair those fixtures up with Leeds, and do this, because it's really quite interesting. Even right the way back to the last game of last season, what you find is that we've played similar opposition and got similar results in terms of an easier team away, a harder team at home, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, us against Brighton does feature in that. Well, we played them at Brighton and we drew with them. So that's really, really interesting. So as far as form is concerned, you couldn't have put a piece of paper in between our form and Brighton's form. We've beat Chelsea, and we've beaten them soundly within that time frame. They've beaten Man U soundly within that time frame. So I think what you've got to bear in mind is, from a form point of view, I wouldn't like to call this. Now, were we just playing all things equal, I would say that this has got score draw written all over it.
No, I think it's going to be a 0-0. Genuinely, my match prediction, my score prediction is a hard fought 0-0.
But I think, again, one thing that is going to be very, very different when we're playing a lot of the teams that we're playing is, there's going to be 2 things. There's going to be 2 things at play. What we're going to ask ourselves is, how is this team that we're playing going to perform playing against a super pressing side that is more pressing and more at it and more relentless than any other team that they've ever faced or featured before? We saw with Chelsea, they obviously came with a system, they came with a plan, and we played them off the park and it crumbled. Is that going to happen to Brighton, or are Brighton going to keep their composure? That's the first thing. And what game plan are they going to put into place to try and attack us down the channels, which is perhaps where our weakness is? So we will probably know half an hour in how that game is going to pan out, and whether we're stopping them having chance to settle on the ball is going to work for us. I think it's going to end 1-1 or 2-2. I'm going to stick my neck out and say that I expect it to finish 1-1. That's my prediction, and you can clip that because that's how I think it'll finish. I don't think that's an indictment on the fact that we're not playing as well as we did at Chelsea. We're playing away. It's a cracking stadium. But what I will say is that we're playing a side that has got very similar form to us, and we're in form at the minute. So that's that. What do you think, Dan?
I think it's going to be a 0-0. I think that our defence has improved from last season, obviously with the playing them offside, and I don't think that Welbeck's going to be able to time his run well enough to stay onside with his age. I don't think he's going to be able to have that pace to get him behind the defence.
Fair enough.
I think that it's going to be a 0-0.
Okay, so that's interesting. So let's go through who we think are going to be in the lineups then, Dan. So in terms of the lineups, let's have a quick look at what we think. So first and foremost, we are We're going to look at the obviously we're going to have Melly in goal. I think we're going to have who we're going to have in the centre.
In the midfield, Adams and Rocker again.
Adams and Rocker.
That looks like a really good partnership against Chelsea. That's the best game.
I think we're in agreement on that. What about left back, right back?
Strike and Christensen.
Strike and Christensen. I think that's a given. And I think, to be honest with you, we will have Tyler Adams and we'll also have Rocker again playing just in front. I don't think there's any doubts over that. Now, here's the question: the next three, who we're going to be playing left wing, right wing, and through the middle?
Harrison, James, and Rodrigo, and I think Sinisterra will come on in the 60th minute.
Right, okay. I'm much in agreement. I think we're going to be starting the same. I think Sinisterra will possibly even get a full half this time, which will be interesting. I think Rodrigo's going to play in the middle. One thing I will say is I think that the key man for us is either going to be Harrison or Aronson. I can't get away from the way that those two have started this league. Newcastle putting in derisory 15 and 20 million pound bids for Aronson is an absolute joke. One thing I am going to say is that I think Harrison this year, even though he's had breakout seasons with Leeds, I think he's going to show himself to be very much a contender for that World Cup place on that right wing by the time that comes around. We just a few things to note with Harrison. One of the reasons why we're seeing him perform so well under Jesse Marsch is this: Harrison last season got one less goal and one less assist than Rafinha, who was valued at 50-60 million pound. I've got to say that being the case, remember that Rafinha was an inverted winger, so he was cutting inside and shooting. Harrison got those goals as a winger proper, where he would have been crossing more often than shooting. The reason why Harrison wasn't picking up assists last year is we didn't have anybody arriving late in the box. This year we've got Aronson arriving late in the box, and we've got Rodrigo on form, so we've got a striker playing in his preferred position on form. If you haven't got Harrison and Aronson in your fantasy football side, you probably want shooting, because the value for money you are going to get from them lads is only going to go up. And Rodrigo to a certain extent, but again, time will tell with Rodrigo. We need to keep Rodrigo in the goals. He needs to be scoring every game. We need to keep him on a run of form, because as a striker, to be getting goals week in, week out, and that goal to be appearing big on account of it is really, really important. So for me, I think 1-1. You think 0-0. We're both in there for a draw. It's an away fixture. Be happy with a draw?
Yeah, so we'll see tomorrow then.
But apart from that, thanks ever so much for tuning in. We will be doing a video the early part of next week, which will be a sort of chat about the game, and it's more likely to be a live video. We'll obviously let you know about that. If you're interested in taking part in that, please hit the notification bell. By all means, go over to the Twitter account and follow @LobbyLeeds, because if you want to message us about coming on the channel in terms of doing a phone in, that's something you can do. One other thing, Huang, do you think it'd be a good bit of business?
I think it'd be a good bit of business, but we're going to have to see.
Okay, you think we'll bring a striker in? I think we'll bring a striker in, and again, I don't. Look, we're all talking about Bamford. We're all saying largely the same thing. He might not feature for 10 games this season. I certainly don't think he's going to be the player that we're all expecting. He doesn't strike me as an impact player.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think Wang or Brighton Diaz would be a neat bit of business, and I think that they would suit the Marsch system.
Which would you prefer?
Wang, because he would take less time to adapt to the system, but Brighton Diaz would come in and not expect to be first team straight away, whereas I feel like Wang would. Okay, so we will see you next week, early part of next week. But in the meantime, like the video on the way out, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll speak to you soon. Yeah.